From Jakarta, I'm Jeff Hutton, and this is On the Level. Today, with the fasting month of Ramadan approaching, tens of millions are preparing to leave Indonesia's big cities and head home for the holidays. For Muslims, it's a religious imperative to be with family during this time. This year, though, with the coronavirus, Mudik, as a yearly exodus is known, could spell disaster, accelerating the spread of the virus throughout the country. We speak with Ridwan Kamil, governor of West Java, Indonesia's biggest province with 50 million people. He says India's experience shows that lockdowns are ineffective and hurt the poor. Instead, he's pleading with religious leaders and the central government to reschedule the holidays for later. West Java was the first to introduce rapid testing, uncovering big clusters of likely cases. In one instance, 300 police cadets at an academy in the hill town of Sukabumi. Those cases still need to be confirmed with secondary nasal and throat swabs, but the upshot is that Indonesia's official tally of infections is probably a fraction of what's really out there.
My personal opinion and my logic saying it will be multiple than the one that being announced.
Governor Ridwan Kamil joined us via the Zoom teleconferencing platform from his offices in Bandung, and I asked him about plans for testing, stocks of key medical supplies like masks and respirators, and whether he thinks the pandemic may bolster moderates like him among an increasingly conservative electorate. Mr. Kamil only narrowly won at elections in 2018. President Joko Widodo won re-election last year after teaming up with the top religious cleric. And Basuki Purnama, also known as Ahok, was defeated in a landslide and later jailed on charges of insulting the Quran in 2017.
Still see some hope, Jeff. People who happen to oppose me, for example, bully me during the governor election, now supporting me in handling this issue, in the way I governs the West Java. But I don't think 100% people are shifting to the normalities. They still think the issue of Ahok and also presidential election is still in their mind.
That's coming up. Stay with us. My next guest is Ridwan Kamil. He's the governor of West Java. With a population of 50 million, the province is twice the size of Australia and Indonesia's most populous. And because it neighbors Jakarta, it may be most at danger of becoming the country's next epicenter of the pandemic, as migrant workers from Jakarta return home for the holidays in a yearly migration known as Mudik. Mr. Kamil joined us from his office in Bandung. Governor Ridwan Kamil, thank you so much for joining us. I guess my first question to you is, should Mudik go ahead?
I don't think so. In Islam, Jeff, everything must according to our Quran, our teaching. But when it comes to emergency situation, all this normality cannot be done. Yeah. For example, we cannot eat pigs, or pork. But in situation is super emergency, there is nothing to eat, for example, that forbidden things become allowable according to our teaching. So this is similar things. This is not a normal situations. This is a pandemic situations. If you insist to go mudik with the issue of asymptomatic person or person without any symptoms, you can bring as a silent carrier of this virus. And it is proven to be true, Jeff. We have 3 cases in West Java, one in Ciamis. An elderly got ill, positive, confirmed COVID, 1 day or 2 days after her son visited from Jakarta. Second case, the husband got positive because visited by his wife, who happened to be working in Jakarta also, visited her husband in Bandung. And the third case is to prove this argument. Yesterday, three members of a family in a village in Cianjur, they tested positive because some of the family members just arrived from Jakarta. So by having these three cases, we are convinced and we are sending this argument to central government to strongly forbid the mudik. And I think 2 days ago, I had a teleconference with the vice president, who happened to be also ulama and ex-chairman of MUI, as you know it, yeah. So Majelis Ulama Indonesia will release the fatwa saying that mudik is forbidden during this kind of situation. And I think people will follow more to ulama in regards to religious ritual or issue more than to our suggestion as a government.
President Joko Widodo has been reluctant to shut down Jakarta and to come out and say clearly that mudik should not go ahead, at least for now. What explains his reluctance, do you think?
For the mudik, I understand the concern, Jeff, because if you officially give order forbid the mudik, it might violate the human rights issues, because it is the right of every people to return home, unless you have lockdown. But you don't have the lockdown, so it means any forbidding something like mudik would be considered violating the human rights. So I think that's mostly the basic thing. But he hopes that the whole people understand not to exercise the mudik during this condition, given all the facts and issues that will come up when you insisted to go mudik. Not every lockdown in the world succeed, yeah. And keep mentioning the India model that we are afraid to be happen in Indonesia if Jakarta is locked down.
Could you paint a picture of your province for somebody outside of Indonesia? How is West Java particularly vulnerable to this outbreak?
Yes, I'm managing the biggest province in Indonesia. My population is almost 50 million, almost the size of South Korea, double the size of Australia. So anything in terms of numbers, West Java is always the number one province. Now, when it comes to coronavirus issues, we are the neighboring province to Jakarta. So when there is some issues in social, political crisis, a healthcare crisis like this, I think the next province would be West Java, for example. And it's true. From all the confirmed positive, 2/3 of our cases happen in Depok, city of Bogor, region Bogor, city of Bekasi, and region of Bekasi. So now we are following the WHO regulations and recommendation. Number one, we are the first province to do the independent test. If you remember, the first 12 days, all the tests must be done in Jakarta. It takes a long queue from other province sample to come to be tested and to be reported back to provinces. Only West Java started its own test. I bought the equipment and test kit from South Korea. I called the ambassador of South Korea. I contacted my Korean friends, and we have the PCR equipment and test kit arrive, I think a couple of days before Pak Jokowi started to announce the first patients. And from these 500 tests, we found many clusters that now being blockade for to our response. We found Pak Bima Arya, the mayor of Bogor, using this test. We found vice mayor of Bandung positive using our test. We found the region of Karawang also. So I think we made the right decision not to rely 100% to the central government hierarchy or bureaucracy. Second, we follow the WHO model, expanding the test. We have sent 60,000 rapid test kit to 27 cities, Jeff. And from 50,000 reported tests, we found 677 suspected positive, need to be reconfirmed by PCR test. But this is to indicate if we don't do the testing, then we don't know what's happening in our province. That's why West Java is very progressive, massive. We try to reach 100,000 tests in the next 7 days. Our target to be similar like Korea. Korea, 51 million people, testing for COVID 300,000, so 0.6%. So we are following the South Korea model, short-term target 100,000, mid-term target 300,000 testing, and hopefully by doing so, we will have a clear map where to blockade, which area need to be alert, and so on and so on. So I think in this dimension, we are doing okay. Second would be, the most difficult thing is educating the people, Jeff, to do the physical distancing. I think handling the patient, no problem. Preparing for the worst of thousands of positive, no problems. The main concern for us is, since we don't have the lockdown, so the best thing we can do is just advising and asking people to stay at home, but not everybody can stay at home because of the work situations. Yeah, physical distancing is not easy. So I think the most difficult thing is to educating the people about these issues. The third issue in West Java is now the economic impact is already felt by many people. So West Java preparing two scenarios. Number one, we allocating 3.2 trillion rupiah for sending cash and foods to millions of our people, and allocating extra 13 trillion for human intensive projects later on when the pandemic ends. So this in total 16.2 trillion. We agree with our parliament that 16.2 trillion will be the money that focus for COVID or pandemic situation. So we will give 500,000 rupiah, 1/3 for cash, 2/3 for foods. We will buy the food from the market seller in order to keep them alive and in economic terms. So we will buy from the market seller supported by Bulog, and we will use the Grab and Gojek to send with PT Pos to send the food to the recipients.
It sounds to me like you can't count on the central government. It sounds to me like you can't rely on them. You need to do it yourself. Is that right?
You have to understand, we are a very big country and divided by islands. So we are, as you know, an archipelago country. With this geographical condition, it is impossible to rely 100% with the logistic from the central government, because the capital of Jakarta itself is become the center of this pandemic. So I'm exercising what I call proactive governance. Yeah, I'm exercising what I call transparent governance. I'm exercising what I call innovative governance. So these three things, proactive, transparent, and innovative, is the things that I'm doing every day now. For example, I read issues from WHO, I read and I Google the best practice and the worst practice happening around the world. As a governor, I'm responsible of 50 million people. So proactive is much needed in this kind of situation. But as much as the proactive exercise uh, apply, we need to comply with the central government protocol. Every day I report my initiative to Pak Doni Monardo, the Kepala BNPB, assigned by Pak Jokowi as the #1 person to handle this pandemic. And I call also Pak Tito Karnavian, our Minister of Home Affairs, as my direct supervisors. So that's what I'm doing. So while doing a proactive, I keep informing my supervisors to get in touch and mostly appreciated, Jeff. For example, we are the only province to have the comment center dedicated for pandemic. We are the first province to have the app dedicated only for coronavirus issues. This app is very powerful. I think you should highlight also. Without these apps, so many dimensions, so many communication is really chaotic, Jeff. But once we have the apps, we done it in only 4 days because we have a young talented millennial working in our West Java digital unit. So within the apps, if you download it from the Google Store, you can have daily updates of patients. You can download the videos of educating about the coronavirus. You can have donation features if you want to donate. Now, billion already using this one. You can apply for volunteers. We have 2,000 volunteers apply for this one. And the most massive thing using the apps is registering for rapid testing. So I'm asking people to use technology. Hey people, if you want to be tested because you're under category of risky profession or situation, you apply using these apps. And now 16,000, Jeff, registering to these apps to be tested of COVID. So I think, and also fighting the fake news, Jeff. We have the feature to Q&A and chatting and asking about the fake news circulating. So these apps, the only one in Indonesia, done by West Java people, clearly making my job easier, so I can focus on the strategic thinking and decision, and let the technicalities be solved by the apps and our technical team. So I think this is helpful for fighting the coronavirus in West Java.
What's the name of the app?
P. Kobar, Papa, India, Kilo, Oscar, Bravo, Alfa Romeo.
Just to have a couple more questions, and I was hoping that you might be able to help clarify some of the different numbers that we're seeing in terms of infections. You mentioned earlier that there's indicated positives and confirmed positives, and these numbers are very different. In the Sukabumi case, among the police cadets, there are 300 or so that tested positive from rapid testing. There's another 226, I think, from a Catholic church in Bandung. So that puts well over 500. What's to stop you to confirm those tests? Why not go the next step, just to make sure that they do have the coronavirus? I just want to explain those numbers to me.
Okay, here's the thing. The policy of announcing confirmed positive is a domain of central government, okay? So as a local leader, I cannot announcing the confirmed positive. We are now testing the people, 60,000, using the RDT, Rapid Diagnostic Test. This RDT is using the blood sample. Yeah.
Just a pinprick. It's just a drop of blood, right?
A drop of blood. Right. But the testing unit, according to our researcher and confirmed by many people, accuracy maximum 70%. But the price is very affordable. It's only $5 per unit. The PCR using the swab test is tenfold more expensive, and we have less. I have only 10,000 now a unit. I just bought from another South Korean company. So many cases happen like this. Positive by RDT, when you test it by PCR, is actually negative, right? So because of this situation, any positive coming from RDT is not considered confirmed positive unless you prove having the second test and proven by PCR that they are positive. So now, the 300 in Sukabumi, 200 in Bandung is queuing, yeah, in the second test of PCR. Once the result of PCR appears, then I can report this confirmed number to central government. That's why you have a difference between the confirmed positive by central government of West Java, I think it's around 200 something, with the RDT, which is 600 something. But for me, Jeff, doesn't matter whether it's still in RDT or already confirmed in PCR. For me as a leader, I take it as a yes, this is positive for me to deploy the team. For example, I now deploy the police, Jeff, because from the Catholic Church clusters, we need to test 2,000 of their followers, but only 1,000 already tested. We have to tracking down the 1,000. Yeah, the remaining 1,000.
The official numbers have Indonesia at about just over 2,000 confirmed cases. Should we then, are you implying, should we then infer that actually the number of cases are much greater than that?
My personal opinion and my logic saying it will be multiple than the one that being announced. Because West Java, if confirmed by PCR for the next couple of days, it will add like 600 more, right? Instead of 300 something of West Java today. The problem is many provinces in Indonesia, they do not testing as massive as West Java. That's the problem. So you are assuming your case is low, but in my opinion, it's not that the case is low. It's because you're not testing. Because the more you are testing, the more you get a possibility to have higher cases. So yes, I believe it's a multiple than the announcement, but we have to stick with the procedures. That the one with confirmed positive is the one that announced by the central government. So I believe the central government is doing according to the procedures and the facts using the confirmed positive of PCR.
Sir, it's easy from hearing that and from hearing about the headwinds you face and the bit of the high wire you walk between the needs of your province versus the requirements of the central government. It's easy to imagine a doomsday scenario where so many people in your province and across the country are infected and easily overwhelm health services. What is your view 6 months from now, or maybe even at the end of the year? Where will Indonesia be, do you think?
I think we did some algorithm and mathematical models done by 3 universities. If we can have a very disciplined physical distancing by the people, we can end the pandemic by the end of June. The peak would be around May, and June starting to having a trending down, and more or less we can have some normal situation by the end of June, in a condition if the people is disciplined. But if not, then we might drag the situation more to the end of the year. That's why the mudik issue, Jeff, is very critical. I think I can say I can control the pandemic without mudik better, but if the mudik factor comes, then it's very difficult for me to quantify, because for today it's already like 70,000 people, according to reports, mudik to West Java, yeah, returning to West Java. It's very problematic. So I think end of June or drag to end of the year. In my opinion, according to the UNPAD, University of Pajajaran Research Center, the economy is already down, Jeff, in all levels, from non-formal sectors, from to the conglomerate, to industry, all is down. But we can bounce back by the year of 2021. So do not worry about the economy. According to UNPAD says, let's focus on saving the lives, forgetting any economic arguments that blocking the emergency measure, for example. So I believe the UNPAD, I'm using the UNPAD model. I'm focusing now in humanity issues and helping the emergency healthcare and so on, so on. And I believe we will bounce back 2021 to 9% of growth and returning normal to 5% in 2022. But 2020 economy is down, I think below 2%, maybe 1%, and we should brace it with survival mode kind of situations. But Jeff, please, I have one asking for you, okay, yeah? Some media, when I clarify the situations and explaining my situation, sometimes they take it as a contradiction with the central government. That's not true. As I said, I'm exercising the proactive approach, but still in line with the protocol of central government. So if sometimes we have a small differentiation in how to do, it's because I know better my people and my situation that might not be in the consideration of central government. So please do not contradict what I'm doing in West Java and what the central government doing in Jakarta situation. That
I
would be
understand.
my.
I appreciate that. Sir, just one last question. And I suppose I'm trying to create a little bit of a silver lining out of this entire mess. You were elected in the aftermath of former Jakarta Governor Basuki Purnama's blasphemy trial. Your own election was it was religiously charged. It was hard fought, I believe, and it turned a little bit on religious issues. Do you think, what might be the lasting impact of this pandemic? Do you think that there's some chance of the country putting that aside and maybe coming together in a way that bridges religious and secular issues? Is there some hope for that, do you think?
It's very interesting question. I think some people still cannot move on from what's happening in the last Jakarta election, from what's happening in presidential election. Even though Pak Prabowo has already joined the cabinet, but some people still think this issue is still ongoing. So I observe so many criticism to Pak Jokowi. Whatever is doing, the same group, the same people criticizing the way central government in handling the pandemic. So I think I still see some hope, Jeff. Uh, People who happen to oppose me, for example, bully me during the governor election, now supporting me in handling this issue, in the way I governs the West Java. But I don't think 100% people are shifting to the normalities. They still think the issue of Ahok and also presidential election is still in their mind. So to conclude, I think that they are not moving on. Maybe 50% of them.
Sir, I wish you and your family good health and safety.
Thank you, Jeff.
And thank you all. Thank you very much for taking the time. You must be very, very busy. All the best to you.
Thank you.
Before we go, just a note, since we recorded our interview on Sunday, Indonesia's official tally of people infected with the coronavirus has risen to 2,738. The governor's office in Bandung says that rapid testing so far has uncovered 809 people who are probably infected with the virus. And that's On the Level. Our thanks to the governor's office for facilitating the interview. Our producer is Stephen Handoko, research and reporting by Imam Shofwan. We used music from Ketsa on the freemusicarchive.org. And I'm Jeff Hutton. See you next time.